Our next guest in the Informer studio, someone from the eastern suburbs. In fact, the member for Warrandyte. You've been, I think, the member since 2006.
That's right.
Ryan Smith, welcome.
Thank you. Good to
Let's
be back.
talk about what's been happening. We're sitting on the edge of our seats in Victoria at the moment, waiting very much to hear from the Premier, Daniel Andrews, about what this next stage of enlightenment looks like.
Yeah.
The lockdown is still in effect for a great number of businesses. Retail seriously challenged. Hospitality also. There are businesses out there like coffee shops who are doing gangbusters business, but that's how their businesses are being geared up. And there are a number, I know Delish Fish in Port Melbourne, the queue is about a mile long nearly every night. So they're not feeling the pain that a great number of other businesses are feeling. What do you say to the citizens of Melbourne and also the citizens of Victoria broadly? What should we be expecting from our government? It's been a lockdown and it's been a tremendously disruptive time for nearly 9 months now.
Yeah. Well, I don't think people have been so aware of their government in many years. Yeah. They've had the opportunity to see their Premier daily, for between an hour, sometimes 2 hours, every single day, and they have an opportunity to see how he's dealt with the problems, how he's addressed accountability issues, and indeed how he's treated those around him who may have been part of the decisions that have been made. I think that people generally just get on with their lives. They don't pay too much attention to government unless they're directly impacted by a policy or an issue.
Yep.
But in this circumstance where we have 6 million Victorians being directly affected, every single one of them, by government policies, it's interesting to see how some people react to what's happening and to the manner in which the Premier's conducted himself.
It's not only the way he's conducted himself, it's the way he's conducted the business of government. I've noticed that Parliament has behaved very differently this year. I've noticed that COVID has been used as an excuse for, to make sure that you're not meeting as regularly as you should be. And the few times that you have got together, he's played a particularly short shrift and he's dealt with the opposition and other parties with almost a disdain.
Yeah.
Now, in an emergency, if it's the national emergency, if it's the biggest challenge of the last 100 years, should you be doing that at any time?
No, I think people take a lot of things for granted when they live in a democracy such as Victoria's democracy or indeed Australia's democracy. People should take for granted that democracy is going to operate in a balanced way. They should have confidence that you go into Parliament, laws are debated, issues, policy directions are talked about, discussed, and shortcomings are raised. And we have an understanding of people who are involved in those policy decisions, how they're going to be affected. What Daniel Andrews has done is not only has he circumvented the parliamentary process through the state of emergency powers, but he's also circumvented a system of government that's held us in good stead for our entire history as a modern Australia. That cabinet process, which he shrunk from the normal 22 people down to
Super 8.
And to be frank, I think most people in the know would say even that group of 8s really is a tick off on what he decides himself. He directed departmental secretaries to only report to him, and yet when the time comes for accountability, he's too often telling us that he doesn't know how decisions are made, who made them, and why.
Right, he's a brilliantly skilled media operator.
True.
There's no denying that, and he has managed to skillfully weave a story and a narrative which has got him out of a host of different problems. But there are one or two as of late that have taken a bit of skin. And one of the players who's played the particular card that has got under his skin has been the Fox commentator Peter Credlin. She, and people of course have said, oh, that's no journalist, what's she doing there? But I keep thinking to myself, the world is changing at 1 million miles an hour. What I understood as a journalist 40 years ago is not the case today. You're a very different operator. She's a media professional, she has her own program. If she's there at the front line acting and asking stories and inquiring for herself, after all, she is a lawyer.
Yes.
I think that's a pretty fair ask for him in his position as the Premier. If she's allowed to sit in there, he has to answer the questions. And some of those questions have been extraordinarily difficult for him to put to one side or dismiss as easily as he does so many other questions put up by professional journalists who've worked under enormous pressure to deliver. Because the longer he keeps them in there, in that little playpen, a couple of hours, that means that's less time for them to get back to their offices and to their studios and to their desks to report. Now, I know that we have technology today that allows us to do the job almost on the run and then post it and deliver it. But, it's a very, very interesting... What have you made of his sermons on the Mount almost?
Well, I think he does like to control the narrative, which is why he's there all the time. But I think what we've seen in recent times, as you rightly say, is an unravelling of some of the narratives that he's put forward. And there's a saying, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
No, correct.
And what I think he's finding is that he has to justify some of the things he said, because maybe some of those things that he said aren't quite true. They don't quite fit into how the reality is actually unfolding.
The hotel quarantine inquiry, the findings are yet to be handed down. We've seen an extraordinary reconvening session by the Commissioner, Jennifer Coates, who is a fine professional, a fine jurist, and for her to do this tells you that her reputation is on the line.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to just let it finish. She had to come back, and it's going to be very interesting what comes out of it. What have you made of this few weeks where we've discovered that almost an entire cabinet or an entire array of bureaucrats and others have suffered this tremendous malaise? It's called forgetfulness under pressure.
Well,
what have you made of it?
Well, I was concerned for a while there when former Justice Coates said that it was a creeping assumption of how the hotel quarantine situation unfolded. I was worried it was going to be somewhat of a whitewash, and I was concerned that there'd be, maybe the bureaucracy has to get its act together a little bit, and it was going to be brushed under the carpet.
Some criticism, but...
But with the comments that the former Minister Makakos made after she left, saying that the Premier's testimony should be held in question.
But also that she wasn't prepared to work for him.
Yes, that's right.
Or sit in a cabinet with him.
Yeah.
That was a damning...
It absolutely was. And the fact that we've had that journalist, Ms. Credlin, come in and have some very poignant questions pointed at the government, and having those phone records come out, to see the head of the bureaucracy, Chris Eccles, at odds with his testimony and now gone, to even hear now that the Chief Health Officer, who again as a bureaucrat, the public's seen more of him in the last 6 months than they probably have ever seen of any other bureaucrat, to see that his testimony is in question as well. How it's unfolded, I'm hopeful, and your views of former Justice Coates are probably, I'm sure, correct. She's got a reputation to uphold. With all this new evidence, I think that she knows that the public's eye is on her. She knows she has a responsibility to the public.
Sure, it's a legacy too.
And she must come out with something more substantial now than that creeping assumption idea that was first touted to us. There's got to be more than that.
Well, I think we'll have to wait and see on that. But for me, one of the most amazing backflips of the last 24 hours was the announcement by the Super Cabinet only the other day that owners and their others were going to be given a special dispensation to rock up to the Cox Plate at Moonee Valley on the weekend, and they were going to be afforded an opportunity to get down and see the race. And within a matter of hours, the government decided, whoa, the barrage coming from social media is so great, maybe we need to reflect on what we just made a decision on. And within a couple of hours, there was a major backflip, and we saw Martin Pakula at first jump up and say, look, that was a mistake. And then, of course, in the session that followed, the Premier got up and said, no, it was a dumb decision. but they made it.
Well, you've got to have a tin ear to the public at the time. I mean,
But isn't this the same Premier who kept saying it's not about being popular?
Absolutely.
If he keeps saying to me all the time, it's not about being popular, it's about doing the best thing with the best medical advice, I'm starting to question almost everything he tells me.
Well, and so you should, because we've seen so many of the restrictions put in place without that medical advice.
So are these corrections, or are these major negotiating moves from something that he wanted to pursue and now he cannot?
Well, it's clear they're making it up as they go along. That's what's clear to me, because we've never seen any medical advice. It's never been made public. And to say that, well, we've got medical advice to say, or health advice to say that this horse race can go forward with all these people there, then to say, oh no, maybe not. I mean, if that's deemed safe, there are so many other easing of restrictions on people's everyday life that you should be able to make as well. It was a tin ear to the public, and
I think
right
over
to be
the first
reversed.
couple of months, the reasoning and his presentation really was used by the community, and they were extraordinarily compliant.
Yes.
But as each week has passed, as each weekend has passed, and Victorians have been denied an opportunity to get out and about and see the people that matter to them, their friends, their family, and so on, people are now asking questions. And we're seeing signs of real members of the community now saying, I don't want to listen anymore. Now, I don't, for one reason, want to encourage anyone to break the law, but we're seeing more and more examples of people behaving other than as they should.
I see people just getting very frustrated with watching what's unfolding because they don't see the rhyme or reason to it. Look, I agree. I don't want to encourage people to break the law either, but you can sense the frustration in the community. You can sense the anger. You can sense that they're really desperate, some of them.
And isn't the government also putting an inordinate amount of pressure on the police?
Yes,
the police force,
indeed.
men and women, they're not meant to be out there as guardians of every citizen and what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be, they have a responsibility to maintain the law where they can, but I cannot believe that there are policemen and women in this state who can easily cope with the demands that have been thrown on them. I just think it's unfair.
I know police who say that this isn't what they signed up for. I know police who are saying that at their local station they're getting continuous calls about family violence because people are locked in their homes. There is a lot these people, these men and women who service in this way are unhappy about.
Correct.
Credit to them that they're acting professionally, but let people understand that they are under the government's direction. This is the Daniel Andrews Labor government that is creating this sort of environment, and it's just, it needs to come to an end, and the Premier really needs to tell us what the end date is and how we're getting out of this.
Let's hope that date is soon.
Yeah.
Ryan Smith, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
TheInformer.
Thank you.